This is Pod Populi, podcast for the people.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Femme Force podcast. My name is Rachel Paskman, and I am your host. And today I am very excited to be joined by Dr. Michelle Montero. So she is a clinical psychologist, a sports psychologist, and advocates for gender-based violence awareness. So she went from working in a corporate setting to now starting her own private practice, which is so impressive. And she also has a unique perspective on decentralizing men in decision making, women's self-defense, which we know I'm a huge advocate for, and the complexity of female relationships. So we're going to dive right in. Thank you so much, Dr. Montero, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
So just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are right now.
Sure. So, as you already said, I am a psychologist. I practice out of Chicago, Illinois, and been doing my private practice for, gosh, I don't know, whatever the math is, since 2008, 17, I believe.
Years.
Yeah, math is hard. So anyway, I've been doing that. I work with a variety of people. I'm always kind of trying to change it up. I have a really strong base of people that I've worked with for a long time, dealing with just typical clinical issues, anxiety, depression, trauma, relationship issues. And then, I love learning, so I'm constantly kind of learning new tricks and trades and focusing on different populations. And now one of the things that I mean, it's always been passions, but as you mentioned, really focusing on women's issues and gender-based violence. These are things that I've always done. I just now have, I guess, the time to truly dedicate more to that. And, just kind of every day see where it takes me.
I mean, and that's amazing. And you've had such an interesting evolution in your career. How did you transition from working in a corporate setting to private practice? It's a very
Sure.
big switch. It's different. It's a lot of work. And how did you?
Yes, it is. And it was really intimidating. I mean, when you're in school, I'm sure certain disciplines, this is different, but in mine, you're not really taught how to go into private practice. You hear about it, but you're not necessarily taught. So in my mind, I thought of it as like the Great Oz, right? Like what happens over there in private practice? How do you do that? But really, in my lifetime, I worked in corporations and big agencies. So from the time, the way that I started my career was I was a caregiver. I thought if I work in elder care and, kind of in with just working with people that would look good on my college applications and
Mhm.
and trying to become a psychologist. So I worked in assisted living facilities and I did that for about 15 years, really, off and on, from undergrad through grad school and then post. Uh, I wasn't able to get a job in psychology here in Chicago, so I ran an assisted living facility. Again, very corporate company that I worked for. But then while I was training and in school, I was often working for, whether it be a hospital or a state psychiatric hospital or universities. They were always like big business.
Yeah.
And that's when I finally graduated, got my license, that's what I knew. And the thought of going out on my own, while it was really exciting, it was also really intimidating. And quite honestly, which makes me sad to think about it now, I just didn't think I could do it. So after, I don't know, years of doing that, I just kind of got to a place where I thought, why am one, I wasn't being paid very well. I didn't have a schedule that I loved, and I love hard work. I work incredibly hard. But it was like working hard for very little personal satisfaction or reward. And the things that I went into this industry for, I wasn't really able to do. I wasn't able to select, causes that I cared about or clients that I felt like were a really good match or maybe the model of treatment I didn't really feel like aligned with what I could do to really provide good treatment. So lack of resources, those kinds of things. So I just decided, you know what, I'm tired of um, relying on other people, and I'm going to see if I can do this on my own. And I did. It was not easy, and I was working basically full time in another position while also going full time into my own, which took a really big toll on me, but it got to me to where I am.
Yeah. I mean,
And
the
I want
time
to do it
management
different.
skills, it's not
Hmm.
easy. Trust.
Yeah.
So it's hard, and you're trying to balance it all. Such a woman.
Yep.
Also, the point of you not knowing if you could do it, like no matter how many degrees or professional or all of that, like that imposter syndrome runs so deep,
It does. It
ingrained,
does.
and that's obnoxious
Yes.
that we can be
It's
doing so much.
not acceptable.
No, not at all. And the fact that we can be doing so much and all the things and still be like, I don't know, maybe I can. No, it should just be like, yeah, I can. I can fly a plane. But like,
Yep.
I want
Yeah.
that. I want to carry the confidence of a mediocre white man. Like, that's what I need.
Yep.
And it's
Yep.
hard.
It's a good reminder every day.
Absolutely. So you believe in being human first and psychology second, which is how you've shaped your own experiences and the way you approach therapy. So
Mhm.
with you emphasizing that, how has that shaped your work and connected you with these clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, I think, we live in a very binary culture, very binary world. I guess I should not, maybe not world, at least culturally here.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's very easy, or what I've observed is it's very easy to be like, this person's a doctor. They have all the answers, or this person's a doctor, how did they make that mistake, or this person's a this, like, there's very little degree of freedom for error, mistake, and I think that that's problematic for everybody. It's problematic for the people in roles like myself, or like mine. It's problematic for the people that we're working with because they're even though I try to reduce like the power difference within my relationship to a degree where it doesn't seem like I'm like this big scary thing, there's always going to be an element of that there. And with that comes a power where people are like kind of looking at you like you've got it all together and you know all the answers
Yeah.
um, and so you're modeling to people, and I don't want to replicate modeling perfection. I don't want to replicate modeling this binary of either it is or it isn't. And I think the thing that I find with my clients, with my own interactions, is connecting with people is the basis of so much. And so I don't want to come in to an interview. I don't want to come into working with a client with the expectation that I am different than them, that I have it all together, that, I have a lot of knowledge. That's what I always say. So if any of my clients, past or current, are listening, they will laugh because that's the first thing I say to them is like, I'm a human first and I'm a psychologist second. And I will do my best to always be real. That doesn't mean I don't have boundaries and I'm like sharing over disclosures that are inappropriate in a clinical setting. Um, but I'll let somebody know I'm scared, or you know what? You're right. I was 10 minutes late and it's because I um thought today was Wednesday, or today is Wednesday, but I thought today was Tuesday and
Right.
our appointment is on Wednesday, right? Like I believe in sharing those things. And I think when you can do that, the work that you do and the relationships that you have with people are just that much stronger.
Well, and it's such a trigger for what we've learned since we were young. Like, be
Hmm.
honest, you need to tell the truth, like, be
Yeah.
forward. And it's somehow during our adolescence and into adulthood that just shifts into wanting to be this perfectionism and having to
Yep.
cover up our mistakes and things like that.
Absolutely. Or that you're like suddenly guilty for making a mistake, or you've
Yeah.
like making a mistake, you've done something wrong. And, don't get me wrong, like some mistakes we want to try to avoid, right? Like, or do our best to like,
Yeah.
minimize or whatever. But like mistakes happen, and that's how you learn. And I just want to come in with that, and I want to be greeted with that same. I want that to be like reciprocal, So yeah, I just feel like that's an important message, and being a psychologist. At the times that I've been a psychologist have been very tricky. Typically you don't work with people that are going through the things that you also are experiencing. So, for example, let's say you recently lost a parent or something.
Yeah.
It's not good practice to be working with somebody who also just lost a parent. You can't really be objective.
Yeah.
And so that is, really important in our work. And here in my tenure, the things that I've seen or that we are going through as a country, as a world, COVID, we're going through that at the same time. And so I want to spread that word that like providers are also people, and they are scared and tired and doing the things and are feeling a lot of the same stuff
Yeah.
that you are, and that's what kind of makes us human. And so I think that that's really important. And again, it doesn't mean you have to go through and make inappropriate disclosures or make a session about you and like the losses you've experienced or something. And then suddenly make the client feel like they have to take care of you. But there is the element of like, oh my gosh, this person is going through this too.
No, and it's just hard. And leading into those human factors, you work with a lot of women on their
Mhm.
confidence and, the tokenism trap, which we'll get into. But
Yeah.
many women struggle with this because and especially struggle with the confidence, like we said about the imposter syndrome. So,
Yeah.
and especially in these male-dominated fields. Hi,
Hmm.
me. What advice would you give to someone trying to build their self-trust?
Yeah, no, I think that is, I guess I've said this already. Such a good question. You're asking all the good questions.
Perfect.
It's so important. I guess the first thing is like confidence and building confidence and self-trust. You're not gonna like arrive there, right?
No.
It's not like overnight, like you go to bed one night and I'm like, okay, Rachel, I'm waving the wand. Now you're gonna go to bed and you're gonna wake up and you're gonna feel confident, right? Like that doesn't happen. It's a practice, and it's a relationship. And like all relationships, they need the concept of confidence and self-trust. It's very personal. It's personal to you. What's going to make you feel confident is different than maybe what makes me feel confident.
Yeah.
And so really owning that like, oh wow, there may be similarities, but it doesn't mean that we're the exact same. And just like relationships, that needs to be nurtured and watered and cared for. It's not a linear process, right? But I think the things that really help build confidence is one, knowing that it's not like you're just going to arrive. Um, Really looking at like, what is your mindset? Do you have a growth mindset? Do you have a fixed mindset? If you sort of feel like you're not going to be confident, you're not, right? Like there's only one option there. You either are, or two options. You either are or you are not. But if you have a growth mindset and you're like, I don't feel great in this area, but I do over here. And oh wow, like maybe I could work on this, right? Like if you're able to envision the potential, you're already in a better spot. So I feel like, really looking at like, well, what is my growth mindset? Taking action. I had a mentor. I can only hope that one day she'll hear this. And but this was like 22 years ago, and I was very scared. 22
Yeah.
years ago. I was very scared in my career. I was new. It was, I was doing new things, big things for a 23-year-old. And she said, Montero, fear stops freedom. And I think about that every day of my life. And I don't know if she knows how profound that was for me, but it was profound. And I have gotten friends necklaces with that engraved on it on the backside. So
Yeah.
it's like touches their chest, like fear stops freedom. So often what I hear is like, I just can't do it because what if I fail? And so those two sentences sort of kind of like keep you stuck. And it's not that you can't do it, it's that you are scared. Let's do it and be scared, right? Like both of those things can be true. Um, the other thing I think is like really, so there's this is multifaceted, right? But like continue to build your competence, like whatever it is, whether it's podcasting, whether it's, you're an athlete and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to get a scholarship in college and, whatever, whether you're an engineer, build your competence, right? Like read everything you can, know what is good content and what isn't. And the more you read and the more you know about your own, craft or discipline, the more you're going to realize you don't know very much, but you'll be confident in what you do know, and
Yeah.
you'll be confident in saying what I don't know. The more we know and more solid we are in that, the better we feel about ourselves. Managing that self-talk, preparing, planning, that goes back into like the competence thing. And then, surrounding yourself with like good people, good quality people that believe in you, um, that are like, that's a lofty goal. Do it.
Yeah.
You know, like that sounds big. More power to you. Um, and then again, like build that emotional resilience. But I think all of those things together, they sort of they're they're parts of a whole.
Yeah.
Um,
No, and I
yeah,
totally get that. And I think, I mean, that leans into a whole thing where, like, I've got such an amazing group of women that support me. And, I'll be like, I'm going to be a doctor. And they're like, okay, well, if anybody could do it, you could. And I'm like,
okay.
okay, cool. I'm going to go do that. It's
Hmm.
going to be great. Not becoming a doctor, everyone, but just the wild ideas that I have where I'm like, I think I'm going to do that. And they're just like, oh,
Hmm.
you go, girl. Like, you get it. Like,
Absolutely.
just the you go, girl, even with that hint of like, oh, she is going to burn out. I'm good with that.
And I'm let her do it,
Yes,
let
let
her
me
do
do
it.
it. But a lot of these women, and I mean, I felt this so much in being in, physical security, which is not just male dominated, but male
Yeah.
viewed,
Yeah.
where we have to feel like we compete with women, like for that token spot, which is where
Yes.
tokenism come from. And
Yes.
thinking that there can only be one. Like, I'm the only woman, so like
Yeah.
you can't be here, which then there's 45 men in the room, but like I'm the only woman. So like it can
Hmm.
only be me. When really,
Right.
especially in our niches, and like most of these women, we have the most amazing support groups outside of our day-to-day jobs. And it's
Yep.
so confusing. I mean, I feel it too. I'll be like, but I'm the
Hmm.
girl. Like
Yeah.
you can't come here. I'm the girl. Haven't
Yeah.
acted on it, but think it. And it's really interesting that this is something that is so prevalent in our day-to-day lives.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, it is.
yeah. So when you're doing tokenism or you're trying about it and you've spoken about how women, isolate themselves,
Hmm.
instead of lifting each other up, how do you think this happens? Or why do you think this happens? And how do we kind of
Yeah.
change that dynamic?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, and this isn't, yeah, this has been happening for a long time. I was actually just watching a video um before we got on, and I'm not going to say her name because I don't want to get it wrong, but I do want to give her a shout out because she was talking about exactly this. Um and like why there isn't like a sisterhood, and or the sisterhood maybe not as um robust as it really could be. And many I think want. And I think it, you hit on a lot of the reasons where we are socialized to one, not believe in ourselves. Um, there's like that social conditioning of like self-doubt. If somebody makes it into that spot, right? That one spot, that coveted spot, it's competition. And so how do you hang with the big guys to stay in there when, really it's like how do we work together to continue to promote each other? And it's not about women versus men. It's interdependence. Like how do we how do we support women in those roles and continue to, you know, you go girl, like you got this and I
Yep.
got this, and and like
Help
working
each other.
together, help each other, and not make it this like either or. It's all of the above. Like we all have value. We all have important things to say and do and contribute. And so that coveted spot, right? It doesn't even mean like get rid of all the men. It means let's work interdependently together. Um, I think there's a lot of that, like I think you hinted on this a little bit, but like the comparisons, there's also like insecurity. You're talking about the imposter syndrome, people feeling like they can't do it, or oh my God, I'm here, but it's because somebody thought I was good enough. No, it's because you are good enough. You earned that, like own that, and I think when we feel insecure, it like let's say you're not in that spot, right? But you're feeling insecure and you're jealous of the person that is. We often project our own insecurities onto that person in that spot. And suddenly we're like pitting against one another again versus like working with each other or being like, wow, you know what? Like I'm insecure, she's insecure. Let's make each other feel more secure. Like, um, and so, like really breaking down and owning what is my judgment and how is that being projected onto somebody else? That's not fact. That's like a projection. That's a feeling. That's a insecurity. Let's break that down. And I think like internalized misogyny, I mean,
1,000%.
that is everywhere. And, I work very hard to challenge those things, but I see it in myself all the time, and there's nothing wrong with admitting that either, right? Like, oh wow, that was a little bit of like internalized funk and gunk in there, internalized misogyny that
Yep.
kind of kept me from maybe taking a risk that I really could and should take. Um, and then I just think again, this goes back into all kinds of like not just what we're talking about, but like conflict resolution, right? Like, okay, why am I feeling conflicted about this? Why am I, how do we negotiate those things? We don't need to just get
Yeah.
defensive and, because we're jealous or we're feeling insecure or whatever it may be, but to really just like understand that goes back to the humanness. Like we're all human. We're all struggling with something. What's wrong with admitting that and just saying, you know what, I don't know what your story is and you don't know what mine is, but I'm proud of you for being where you are.
No, 1,000%. And like the misogyny that's been around forever, hopefully we can make it better, but I'm not sure in my lifetime. But you also talk about decentralizing men and kind of shifting the
Mm-hmm.
perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to talk about what it means to decentralize men in both your
Yeah.
professional and personal decisions, and
Mm-hmm.
how cultural expectations often place men at the center of women's choices, which is
Mm-hmm.
baffling in 2025. But what
Mm-hmm.
does decentralizing men mean to you, and how can women start making choices that truly serve them?
Sure. When I started doing it, I don't think it wasn't necessarily like a conscious decision. I didn't really know what
Yeah.
that's what I was doing. It's really upon reflection that I'm like, oh wow, okay. And again, I want to be clear. It's not about like um, hating men or not working with men, but it's recognizing that like our country is built off of patriarchy, right? And it is very
Founding father.
everything is right, and when you look at it, there is an absence of data for women. We look at things from the male perspective. Things are built and designed on males' bodies. The data and research, like looking at research, oftentimes is on males. And there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself. What is wrong or what is missing is that is only 50% of the population.
Yeah.
So that is skewed data. And so when we're looking through a lens that is only focused through men, or like you said, is men are the center of decision making. I think it perpetuates that feeling of insecurity, or that you're not good enough, or that you don't have good ideas, or maybe people don't want to hear what your ideas are. And we often, like, I have nieces and nephews, and they mean the world to me. And it's watching them question things makes me think about these things even more. They're things I already thought about, but then when I see them being so truthful and honest and like, I don't get it. Like, yeah, I don't get it either, man. So they'll ask, like, well, why don't they want to hear from Rachel? I don't know. That's a really good question, right? Like, and then when people say, like, make your little girl feel heard and seen, well, we're doing that. And then to your point, at a certain point, that stops. And I don't believe in that. Like, that voice should continue to be heard. And so when I went into private practice, again, it wasn't in an attempt to decentralize, like, my life, decentralize men from my life. But what happened was I was working for myself. And while I work with men, I also work with, I predominantly work with women. And so over time, I wasn't really engaging with men on a day-to-day basis. I also am a supporter of, like, women-owned businesses, and things. So, like, the choices that I've been making over time, all of a sudden just kind of compounded together, and I started realizing, like, wow, I the way that I'm thinking and seeing is, I feel more confident because I'm making decisions that are truly based off of what I think, what I feel, what is based off of my gut and intuition. Um, and the responses from the people that I'm working with seemed to really respond to that. And so again, it felt like a freedom that I didn't have before, and want to continue to do that for others. And I do work with men, and I love men, and I enjoy working with them, and I support, our allies. But I want to work with individuals that also respect me, and they respect my perspective, or they respect the fact that, like, they don't know what it's like to walk down a street and fear for your life, or I'm only 4'11". They don't know what it's like to be in a professional setting and somebody picks you up and swings you around in front of 250 people. Like, that's demeaning and really undermines your profession, and you know, that's not an experience people are having if they're a male. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
It 100% does. And I think it says so much about where we are in society, and also that, like, this needs to be a collaborative thing for women. Like, this is why we have to support each other and tell men and speak up and say, no, that's not okay. Or, like, she's
right.
talking.
What
And
do
then
you mean
have
by
allies.
that?
Yeah. Or have allies
Absolutely.
that can just be like, hold on, Bob.
Yeah.
She was still going. It's always about,
Let her finish
yeah,
speaking.
let her
Yes.
finish
Like,
speaking.
there's plenty of room to hear what you have to say too, Bob. I would love to hear what you have to
Yes,
say. I also want to hear what Rachel has to say.
exactly. And, like, having those allies. And I really think the next generation, like the little kids, like 5 year old right now, I think they're going to be better at it because their moms have gone through this and are teaching them from the beginning. Like, that's not, we don't talk to
Yeah.
women like that. We don't touch women. You don't
Yeah.
do any of these things. Like,
Yeah.
let her talk, like,
Yeah.
multiple things. And I think, like, there was a generation before that was just, still very silent, and, like, the gender roles were so specific at that point.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think that I'm hoping and thinking,
Yes.
this will adjust.
Both can be true. Hope and
Right.
think.
But when talking about the misogyny, you also focus on women's self-defense and the power of using your voice. And
Yeah.
I'm a huge, huge proponent. That's literally how I got my career. It was self-defense. My father made us, and by us, I mean me, my sister got out of it, take martial arts from when I was like
Love
11,
it.
12, like, for years and years. And I received a black belt, and I continued doing it.
That's
And, it
awesome.
taught me a lot, but, like, it was a niche thing for colleges because there's not a lot of girls that, like,
Yeah.
these,
hmm
exclusive things. So when
Yeah.
it comes to self-defense, especially for women, I mean, you believe in the importance of both vocal and psychological self-defense, and then
hmm
how speaking up can deter threats before they escalate. And I mean, I take so many courses because of my profession on de-escalation. Like it should never get
Yeah.
physical first. You should be able to
Right.
de-escalate the
Yep.
situation like before you go into that. So can you
Yeah.
talk about like how many people think of self-defense as purely physical, but you focus on the vocal defense and how women can use their voices as a form of protection?
Yeah. Absolutely. And both, like you said, both are important. And if it doesn't need to get physical, let's not let it get physical,
Yeah.
right? Like our voice is, in in my career, right? Like my voice and language is truly the only tool that I have. Um, so when I'm working with clients, things could escalate really quickly. And when we're not talking about physical violence at this point right now, we're talking about like a client. Well, I suppose that could happen, but thankfully it hasn't. But like people get upset, and so the power of your voice, the tenor of your voice, what you're saying, the content of what you're saying, your body language, all of those things. So much of our communication is nonverbal, body language, all of those things. But then also the the part that is verbal is like the sound, the cadence, the all of this stuff where you can use it to de-escalate. And but I think furthermore, women, again, as we've already spoken to during this episode, is that like we're socialized to be quiet.
Yeah.
We're socialized to be quiet. We're socialized to be nice. We're socialized to not be rude or don't be dramatic. And oftentimes when a woman or a person is feeling like inside, that is their gut telling them something's not right.
Yep.
And the first line of defense you have is your voice. Um, so using that can really potentially prevent an assault, a rape, a mugging, whatever it may be, or have something be interrupted. So, I'm part of an organization here in Chicago. It's called Impact Chicago, and it's a self-defense organization supporting women and women identifying individuals. And it's trauma informed, and we do teach the physical side of things. I took this course in the fall actually, and I'm a pretty like I'd say I'm a pretty chatty person, and I'm not really afraid to use my voice. Uh, but I am. It's like I don't think that I'm afraid to use my voice until I'm in a situation I realize, oh wow, I'm not using my voice.
Yeah.
And so in the they call it the core program. It's a 20-hour program over a weekend, and you learn different physical techniques to protect yourself. And once you learn that skill, you go into what they call fight with a suited instructor, and basically you fight them. And one I don't remember, I believe it's on the second day they had us do the fight, but it was purely with your voice. And I actually found that to be much harder than the other ones. So you kind of won the fight, quote unquote, when the suited instructor finally like backed down. And so I mean, the student instructors are incredible. Oh my gosh, they're so good. And they really, really get in there, and they make you're in like an adrenalized state, and it really feels very, very real. They're saying horrible things that somebody that might be an assailant might say, and you're like having to shout. And in the beginning, it's sort of like back off, could you please back up? And they continue to press that boundary, and so it escalates. And that was really, really challenging. And it was really upsetting to see how challenging that was for myself. And I realized, like, wow, this is real. Like, we really are taught not to, we're taught to just be quiet. And so, again, not to, repeat myself, but I think learning how to use your voice, learning a lot of times what women will do when we're put in a position where we're like, yell back or shout back or speak up, we giggle.
Yeah.
And it kind of undermines what you're trying to do too. And it's not that you think it's funny, it's your people are uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's a stress release.
It's a stress release, right? And so that and to see that come up even in myself where it's like I'm like behaving like a little girl where I'm trying to like, I'm like giggling because I'm uncomfortable and I think I'm being rude. And really what I'm saying is like, back up. Like
Yeah.
you are invading my space and that's not funny. It's not cool. And so becoming more comfortable with that, we can demonstrate that using your voice does de-escalate things and help prevent, you know, serious crimes against women.
1,000%. There's a really great book by Gavin DeBecker. Not a fan of the company, fan of the book, Gift of Fear. But I mean,
Yes.
that really changed a lot. It's on Oprah's bestseller list, like lifetime
Yep.
bestseller list.
I
But
have read that book.
it's an excellent book, and I always will remember certain parts in there where a woman's like taking up her groceries and she just doesn't
Hmm.
want to be rude. We're so trained to not be rude.
Yes.
And she has a bad feeling, but she's like, I can't tell him no, he's offering to help me with my groceries. That's so rude. And then he ends up in her apartment to try to rape and
Yep.
kill her. And it's like if you just would listen to your instincts, like I had
Listen to your
a client
gut.
who was like, we're not more special than anyone. Everyone can come in the elevator with us. And I finally had to be like, you understand that you're locking me in a steel cage with people that I don't know what their intentions are. We don't know if they're here for you. We don't know if they know you. And you're putting me in a
Yeah.
steel box with them that can be stopped between any
Yeah.
floor. I'm like, because you want to be nice. We don't have to be nice.
Yep.
It's
No, we don't
fine.
have to be
Like
nice.
move it along. No, no one can get in the
Yeah.
elevator with us. Like we're not like
Yep.
fine, move on. They're not gonna remember. We're just gonna be like, sorry, we're in a rush. So many
Yeah.
different things like that. I was like,
Yep.
dogs wouldn't put themselves in that situation.
Right. Right. And again, it's like when I work with my clients, a lot of times they'll be like, I could never say that. I could never. I'm like, yes, you can.
Yeah.
And also, there's a difference between, like, I think sometimes because we are trained, we're taught like not to be rude, not to be mean, not to be angry, not to be like, I would much rather be angry than raped.
Hell yeah.
Like, oh, God forbid I'm angry and, like, oh,
God
well,
forbid I'm a
um,
bitch. I'm like, would rather
exactly.
be that.
I'd rather be a bitch than be, assaulted and murdered.
Mhm.
Like I don't want to have regrets about that, right? Like I don't want to have, but I think oftentimes initially, right? Like it doesn't have to be, you know what? I'm just going to take this elevator alone, right? Like you can say something like that. Or I think sometimes people in their minds, especially when I'm working with my clients and we talk about this and we play around, but doing very serious work is that in their mind, initially, they're out the gate thinking that they are sounding so ridiculous and so angry and they're not, right? It's
Yeah.
like you're all you have to say is like, no, thank you.
Yep.
I'm gonna take the next car,
Yep.
right? Like you can say that. It doesn't mean that you are angry. It doesn't mean that you're a bitch. It means you're protecting yourself.
1,000%.
Um, And should you need to get to that point, and they teach in the course too, right? Like, sometimes people find they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna, start swearing back and be like, yeah, come on, motherfucker, whatever. They're gonna say these things
Mhm.
like back to the assailant, and they say, don't do that,
Yeah.
right?
Don't
Because
antagonize.
that engages them,
Mhm.
right? Like, just back up, just repeating yourself over and over again. That is just defending yourself. That's
Exactly.
not um, so it's very important.
1,000%. And I think every woman should take both physical and vocal self-defense. I mean, the amount of
Hmm.
women where if I teach a self-defense class, I'm like, all right, go ahead and make a fist. And then I'm like, did no one ever like teach you how to throw a punch? I'm like, you just broke your thumb. Okay. I'm like, you just broke your hand doing whatever you're
Yeah.
doing with that. Like, how
Hmm.
I know how to do this from such an early age because we're
Early
taught
age.
them. And I'm like, how do girls not know?
How do you not know?
I'm like, you might
Hmm.
need this. And also, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. You do whatever you gouge, scrap,
Yeah.
like, get
Right.
in there, do whatever you have to
Yeah.
do. It's so important
Hmm.
to at least
Totally.
know. I'm like, just get them on the ground and then run away. This is not a win.
Yep.
Run away.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
you can't
Exactly.
scream.
Like you're not looking for a win. You're
Nope,
looking
run
to
away.
get away.
Run
Hmm.
away. And I think that's so important for women to understand.
Hmm.
This has been amazing. This has been such a great conversation, but I do have one last question I ask all
Sure.
of my guests.
Yeah.
If you had one piece of advice to give to your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
Hmm.
Different person.
Gosh. Oh my gosh. One thing to say to my 16-year-old self. Um, I guess like it gets better. Like it gets better and like you. Like just you, be you, let others see you, you know?
I love
That's
that.
so simple, but that's what I would
So
say.
simple, but I mean, it applies today. Like,
Yeah, totally.
just do those kind of
Yeah. I think if 16-year-old me saw where 45-year-old
things.
me is, they would be like, what? Who? What?
No trust. I know. She'd be like, excuse me? You did what?
What? Who? What? Who is
How?
this? Yeah.
When? Like,
Yeah.
so you didn't marry rich? And like,
Right, right.
okay, we changed our plans. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Interesting. That's not where we thought it was going to go. All those things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
different person.
Plot twist.
There always is. Well, plug yourself, tell listeners where they can find you and, websites, Instagram, all that jazz.
Yeah, all that jazz. So I have a website. It is a little long, but it's alchemyperformanceconsulting.com. So just put that in there. I'm on LinkedIn, and yeah, that's how you can get me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I thought this was such an interesting conversation, and I hope everyone has learned something. And ladies, go out and sign up for these defense classes because there's going to be
Mhm.
some really great ones, and I'll link them in the bio later. Thank you so much,
So
Dr.
thank you.